Show here on Arise News. What will be the justification for adding another layer of service charge for Nigerians in the midst of complaints about the poor quality of telecom service they are currently getting? That question once again assumed relevance over the past weekend with the attempted introduction of what is called the USSD on mobile banking transactions. We will now devote substantial time to this with Gbenga Adebayo, Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria. Gbenga Adebayo, welcome to the morning show.
Thank you.
Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning, viewers.
Well, first, the body of bank CEOs, they came up the other day. They said they had no hand in this introduction of a service charge on mobile banking transactions. But, you know, one news platform at least published a letter, a September 16 letter, purportedly written by the board of bank CEOs to your association, the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, asking you for, you know, the introduction of end-user billing, reverse service charges, and all of that. But they came out and they said, no, that never happened. Now, are the bank CEOs lying? What exactly happened?
Well, once again, good morning, viewers, and thanks for having me. I think the fact remains that the banks and the bankers are quite economical with the truth. And this is a case of, if you go to equity, must go with clean hands. The records are there, and the records can't lie. There are correspondence that we have sent to them. There are concerns that we have expressed as an industry. And the ripple effect that we got following that introduction just attests to the fact that we were right in our concerns to the bankers. But surprisingly, the bankers came to say they didn't have a hand in it. The records show otherwise. And I say again, he who go to equity must go with clean hands.
Well, no, but what exactly happened? I mean, if you read the story, it looks like your association, your members, wanted to share the 10 naira to 50 naira that is charged by the banks from their own end. And they said no, that if you want to share with us, then we'll be compelled to increase by 450%, right? And then you proposed, and then they proposed to you that, okay, you could charge. Of course, that will amount to double dealing.
Absolutely. At
their end, you know, and at your end, more or less. Could you tell us a little of what happened? I don't want my summary to be the story. You know, okay. You tell us exactly what happened.
Now, the USSD is a protocol, is an access protocol of communications. That is the same link you use in checking your balances on the phones. You dial a star something, 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 the system responds to you by giving you your status of the credit. At some point, the banks came and said they would like to access their platform using this application, using this channel, which obliged them. And they went to the NCC, our regulator. They got the access code, and we activated it. And in the first instance, in the first days, it was meant to be just some form of access code. But over the years and as the industry evolved, it became a means of primary access by the bankers, by the subscribers to the bankers. And we had gentleman understanding as to how it should work. The banks charge their subscribers, which makes sense to do. They do some kind of revenue share with us, which makes sense to do because we provide the transport access. And they woke up after a meeting and said they don't want to pay again for the use of the USSD charge. In their own view, we have no cost to run the service. We have no cost to provide the links. And they think that we should charge the end user for this service. And we felt otherwise. And there was the records are there. I signed on behalf of the industry a letter to the Board of Bankers CEOs, I think about 15th of October, where we expressed a lot of concerns about the USSD charge. In fact, we did say in that letter that asking the subscribers to pay for usage of the USSD, it's like you, a bank, you are a tenant in a building, and you're asking your customers to pay your landlord for an access into the bank. We gave that analogy in that letter. And the bankers came and said, so be it, go and find a way of recovering your charges from your subscribers, and we left it at that. And then we approached our regulator to do what is fair to everybody. And NCC, in its characteristics, conducted an extensive study benchmarking our sector, our market with other markets, and they came up with a determination of what they think is fair and right to charge for the USD, like they normally do in all cases of pricing. We don't, all our prices are regulated, they are determined, they have a lower level, upper level provided by the NCC based on studies. The same for voice call, for text messages and all that. And so it was normally, and it was procedural for NCC to determine what should be the fair price. And we again approached the body of bankers and said, this is not the determination. This is the outcome of the studies. This is what it would be. This is what the implication would be. Can you charge and repay us? And can we continue with the revenue sharing formula? And the body of bankers insisted otherwise. They said, no. We are very transparent in the industry. And so our members that went to the public to say, we are going to begin to charge, is in compliance with the statutory rules of how things are done. The other way, the bankers will charge without even telling you that they are going to charge. They will introduce new rates without even informing you that they will introduce new rates. We went to the public to say this is what will now happen following the disagreement with the body of bankers. And so the uproar came. Our minister asked that we should discontinue, the status quo should remain, which is now where we are. But as I said, it's unfortunate that the institution of the bankers, they say things like they said. I'm particularly very appalled and I'm disappointed at the response of the bankers. None of them has owned up to the fact that they asked us to actually go ahead and charge the users. But it is what it is.
Well, this is the beauty of documentation.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
people don't own up, you have proof. So I wanted to ask you, the minister has called for a suspension of the charges. It has not been completely taken off the table. What are your comments on that? Are we supposed to expect that at some point? And also, your body is asking for an urgent meeting to be convened with NCC, CBN, all the stakeholders on this issue. What are you hoping to achieve at that meeting?
It is only fair, to allow the operators to charge, because I must say that the USSD actually operates using special signaling protocol, and they use dedicated signaling protocol, more or less the same resources as is used in delivering voice calls and as is used in delivering text messages and all that. And so why should we provide these links for the banks free of charge? More so when the banks are charging their subscribers. And we say, again, like I said, it's like asking the subscribers to pay your landlord before they access your banking hall. That's what we are saying. So if it's a service that the banks are already charging, it's only fair to pay the operators for at least the cost of delivering the service to them. And so in our expectation that when the meetings are called, I mean, facts will be brought on table. NCC has come with a determination of rate. They have the statistics, they have the data, they have all the supporting documents to this effect. We also expect that what is honorable actually for the CBN to do is to direct the bankers to stop charging their subscribers. While we have been asked to discontinue, and we continue to provide those services, we have stopped introducing the charges. We continue to provide the services in compliance with the ministerial directive that we have. We think it's only ethically right and morally right for the banks as well to discontinue those charges until we have a conclusion on how to proceed.
Absolutely. And speaking of ethically right and morally right, you would think that a company like MTN that has benefited so much from Nigeria, even with its last IPO on the NSE, would actually be looking at ways to decrease their prices for Nigerian customers, yet that is not something that they seem to be doing or something that they have any interest in whatsoever. Is your body doing anything to push on that sort of notion with telcos like MTN that really and truly should be looking at ways to decrease their prices for the average Nigerian customer? That is the reason that their business is benefiting or thriving anywhere across the continent today.
Those are separate issues. Those are completely separate issues. The fact that the company is doing business and is making profit is not the reason why a channel should provide a free of charge for anyone. Those are separate issues. And if you look at what the industry has done for the economy, even today, the success of the banking sector is based on the services that are provided by telecom operators. If we say that we have more financial inclusion as it were, it is because of the services provided by telecom operators and the likes of MTN and other companies that are doing the same thing. So what we are saying is that it's an industry that drives the economy. It's a sector that provides infrastructure for other infrastructures. And so the issue of somebody is making money, somebody is doing an IPO and making returns, it's not relevant in this mix at all. It is not relevant because we are driving the economy, we're providing resources to drive other sectors of the economy. We are contributing one of the largest in terms of GDP, one of the largest in terms of FDI to the country. And therefore, we think that the environment where we operate should be fair, should be transparent, and should be encouraging for those who continue to invest in the economy.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
The CBN governor, in directing the deposit money banks to turn against MTN, more or less, if I put it like that, said that there was a meeting 5 months ago where, the CBN interfaced with telecom operators and pointed out that, look, this is a sunk fund, it's not an investment in infrastructure. There was a disagreement. And that if you must go ahead in charging for mobile banking transactions, then, of course, the percentage should be very small. Now, what happened at that meeting? Are you aware of that meeting? Why is it that it was difficult to reach any agreement at that meeting? Because the CBN governor, Emefiele, was relying on that conversation to say, look, these telecom operators, they didn't listen to us. And now they've gone ahead to do something that is against the CBN's financial inclusion strategy. So it will look like by double billing, you are trying to destroy something which is an area of major gain in terms of monetary policy, which is financial inclusion.
Again, the bankers want to eat their cake and have it. And the argument is very straightforward. We provide channel of interface, which is supposed to be an access point. They turned it to a revenue stream for themselves, and they don't want to pay anything for it. That's the argument. I do not know if the CBN governor was properly briefed, because what you have quoted him as saying is not actually correct representation and interpretation of what happened at that meeting. Because we had a revenue sharing formula with the banks, that the banks will charge X. A percentage of X will be paid to the operator who provide resources to access this channel. And that was it. The banks woke up one after a meeting and said, no, they don't want to pay again. We went to the regulator and said, this is not what we have. Can we determine a fair rate? And when the regulator came back with this study, with the outcome of this study, we went back to the banks and said, this is what it will be. Now, if you say that the cost of providing the channel is sunk cost, I will then ask you, is the cost of providing the life cycle sunk cost? The answer is certainly no. And again, we provide these links to the bank. We have quality of service obligation on those links. It's part of the matrices on which the industry is measured. So it means that on a recurring basis, those circuits must not only be active, they must be active and effective for us to be able to support the banks. And so the argument and the narrative that if you must charge, it has to be a percentage. The big question to ask the banks is, how much do they charge their subscribers? And how much of it do they pay to the operators? Why we charge in a certain fraction, the banks charge between 10, and I was even told yesterday in some cases 50 to 70 naira. What's fine? Multiples of what we charge to the banks. And the banks are even saying they want to charge this in whole and keep to themselves without anything for the operators. That is the problem.
Pause for breath while we take a break, and we'll be back with more on this conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Gbenga Adebayo, Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, ALTON. So we've been talking about this whole USSD charge imbroglio that's happening. So when this meeting is convened, this meeting that you have requested with the CBN, NCC, all the stakeholders, when you all sit at the table, what for you is the optimum result?
Well, to be paid for the services we offer to the banks. And those prices should be fair to the subscriber, should be fair to the industry. Because at the end of the day, today it looks like the banks are a lot unto themselves. And I'm saying, how many of the charges of the banks do we really know? Even as a user, as a customer of the banks, how many of their charges are as transparent as our rate as an industry? That's one moral question that the banks should answer. You use an ATM, you don't succeed, they charge you. You use a POS machine, you don't succeed, you get charged. They do a reversal, they don't return back the charges that has been made on those charges. And those are things that we have seen with the banks. And so what they have brought now to the operator is to say, you know what, we put it in your nose, we are the banks, we are the Lord, and we are the Lords. And it doesn't work like that. So the issue, therefore, is that we need to come to a point where the rates are fair, the banks have to come and it has to be transparent, and I think they owe that moral explanation to the public. How much are they charging for this service? In the face of all these arguments, none of the bankers have come to say to the public that this is what we charge for this service. When the CBN governor said that we have sunk cost, did he tell you how much they are charging? Did he tell you how much they're earning from our sunk cost, quote and unquote? The answer is, of course, no. And we know, you know, that they charge for this service. So the bank has to come, they have to come with the facts. They have to come as transparent and as honest as they should be. And we need to agree on the way forward. Otherwise, as an industry, we'll make a case for to say, let's disconnect the links to the banks and let's see where we are.
Yeah, and which is precisely the point.
Yeah.
If you do that,
yes,
then you will have failed in your corporate social responsibility to promote financial inclusion.
Absolutely. And this is why we are saying, and this is why we are saying, the earlier we come on the table, the better. And today, if you talk about financial inclusion, there is no industry and no sector has contributed to financial inclusion than the telecom sector. Absolutely. The success of the banks today, whether by ATM, by POS, by online banking, by digital access, is all by the service providers. And that's why we are saying that they cannot treat us like we are the least important in the line of things.
Absolutely. And I'd like to actually take that a step further and suggest something to you and see what you think about this. MTN also just got their license for mobile money, right? And if we take Safaricom in Kenya, for example, and what they were able to do with mobile money and the M-Pesa platform in the country, basically put them in a more powerful position than the banks themselves. Now, 60% of Nigeria's population is unbanked. And financial inclusion, of course, is at the front burner of matters that we're discussing here. Is it possible, per se, that MTN, in some way or another, wanted users to be alerted about USSD charges to kind of deter users from wanting to take that route and put more focus on mobile money, because that is something they have just been licensed for. And it's also something that is really big. So basically, I'm suggesting, is it possible that the banks actually did not know and that is a situation? Or do you think that is absolutely impossible?
It's impossible because, I mean, you haven't seen the... First, I don't represent one company. I represent the entire industry. So I can't hold brief for any single operator. But I have seen the terms of the payment service PSB licenses. The instrument of protection there for the banks is quite strong. And so there is no second layer operator, not a service provider or anyone who is a holder of this license who can take out any chunk from the banks. It can't happen. The way the licenses are awarded, the documents are awarded, the banks are well protected and the sex is good. Now, the issue of financial inclusion, which is a point I would like to emphasize, the sector, our sector, has done the most for financial inclusion. And you see, what is also upsetting about this matter is that when the USSD channels were provided for the banks, it was meant for financial inclusion. Statistics have shown that they have used it to sell of more products and services to the already banked and less to the unbanked. So otherwise, if you look at the trend of the growth in the banks, you have more people doing digital services with the banks. There are more people being enlisted and being added to the unincluded financial group. So the point we are making is that it has become elitist. It's become an access point for the banks to improve on their services, more for the corporate and the banked, and less for the unbanked. And in our proposal, even to the CBN, when the issue of the payment services bank was discussed, we have said that we have the largest access, we have the widest coverage of the country. So if you're actually talking about financial inclusion, the best sector to partner with is actually the telecom sector. Now they brought in this issue of USSD. They created now this tension, and there is now distrust between everybody.
Well, I think the good thing about what is going on is that it provides an opportunity for further conversation and negotiation. And Tunu has raised the point about your expectations when that meeting that your association is asking for, and even the minister, has said would happen. And I would like us to stretch that a little further. Now, apart from this issue of service charge for mobile banking, the minister raised some other issues. He has asked operators to reduce cost of data, that it is too high. He has asked for better services, right? Now, what are your own expectations? Because when you go to that meeting, some of these other issues may come up. What are your expectations in terms of what you think should be done? Not just the banks now, maybe with regard to the backbone, maybe with regard to infrastructure, I don't know.
Doctor,
What you think?
I'm sure you would not like me to tell you what I'm going to seek as prayers from the minister when we meet him. No, if I do that now, then it jeopardizes my chances of getting what I want from the minister.
No, that's not true. This is a stakeholder issue. And we are all involved as stakeholders. Yes.
You've raised quite important points. You see, today our industry has become the infrastructure of infrastructures. And it is very important that we realize that no industry is insulated from failure. No industry is immune from failure. So even on issues of policy and regulation, we need to be very careful. Dr. Abati, you are very well aware about the success of the textile industry in the 70s and the 80s. It was like nothing can happen to them due to problems of policy and regulation and all that. Look at what became of our textile industry today. Sometime in this country, NITEL was an institution to be. Look at the story of NITEL. Same thing with our NEPA. And so while we have the industries that we have built by the private sector, we all must be careful in ensuring that policies and regulation does not stifle growth and does not impede development. Where am I going? There is a need for us to protect the infrastructure of telecom operators, and I think that is key. The issue of telecommunications as critical national security and economic infrastructure has become more than important. Because we are talking about what we are talking today because we have a live network. If networks are not live and active, the economy will be in problem. And so for me, my first prayer to the government will be to classify telecommunications as critical national security and economic infrastructure and accord it that level of protection, that no one will be allowed to tamper with telecom infrastructure without paying the price. Today, we are the most accessible, we are the most vulnerable, and people consider us as an extractive industry, where everybody wants to take something from the service provider. It's now evident even from what the banks are doing. When you hire a premises to install a base station, the landlord, after collecting rent, will ask you for access fee each time you go to reload a diesel on that site. The locals will ask you for money for access. Now, if you refuse to give, they will prevent access from site. In some cases, we have cases of people even going to willfully switch off telecommunication sites. And we think that these things are affecting the will of progress. So when we talk about issue of quality of service, issue of tariffs and all of that, tariff, I've said again and again, tariff is a commercial factor. And it should be left and driven by market forces. Provide the enabling environment and leave the rest to market forces to determine.
To the detriment of the consumer.
Not so. It's not so, because there's a minimum cost. And you need to cover your costs. That's the fact of it. So we cannot shy away from the fact that we have depth of supporting infrastructure. We provide our own power, our own security, our own links, and as the case may be, we solve our own problem in our own way. These costs are high. So you can't say that do not charge a tariff that will be reflective of your operating cost and operating environment. And when people come to say, go to a nearby country, the cost is X. Go to a nearby state, the cost is Y. I'm saying that do they have the same environment?
No, but this is the biggest market in Africa.
Apple for apple?
No, this is the biggest market.
I can also say to you, doctor, that it is the most difficult market to work in Africa. I can say that to you as an operator. The reason being that if you have failure on Lagos Badon Express Road at 7 p.m. at night, you can't access that place. You have to wait in money. For reasons of safety of personnel and equipment, you can't even do maintenance.
Well,
in those countries, the economy runs for 24 hours.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.